Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing on this Thursday night? Sorry, had to think about what day it was. We're so glad that you're joining us for the Live Events Coalition Town Hall. My name is Nancy Shaffer. I sit on the board of the coalition, and we're really, really excited tonight about having a wonderful panel of guests from many of our state coalitions. I will get to introductions shortly, but before then, we have a few do's and don'ts that we like to go through. Number one, is that me that's reverberating? Okay. Please be kind and understanding to others. We're an open space, but we want to be kind to one another and respect one another. Please avoid self or company promotion on coalition webinars. Please remain nonpartisan. Continue to support each other in our industry through this very, very tough time. While the coalition members are trying to share as much information as possible, we too are figuring this out every day. Be patient with us. It's also the policy of the Live Events Coalition to comply in all aspects with federal and state antitrust laws. Discussions of any matters relating to competition among our attendees or relating to practices that may restrain trade with third parties is not permitted. These prohibited subjects include pricing, allocating territories, boycotts, or any other statements that may be construed as anti-competitive. And finally, please note that while all of us may offer ideas and advice, we are not legal or financial experts. Our panels may be experts, however, with some of the information they'd be sharing, but it may be different in each unique state, as in specifically in tonight's call. So if you have any really detailed question that has to do with something that we are not legally knowledgeable of, we're not certified accountants, we're not lawyers, make sure that you contact your professional. So now I get to do the fun part, which is welcome you to our state coalition call. These are members of many of our esteemed state coalitions, and my job from the national coalition is to lead our lobbying efforts with our government relations team. So at the national level, we are working with an organization called Subject Matter to make sure that any and all bills that are being brought up to vote on the Hill, which happens to be up the street from my house, are in our best interest as an industry. Lots of activity is happening right now. There are several bills that are being brought forth. One is called the Restart Bill, and there are several others that we are supporting in the fact that we are saying, yes, we like these. Doesn't mean they're perfect. Right now, we're all in a difficult situation. We closed first, we will open last. We understand that. But part of what our efforts along with government relations is a communications plan that we will roll out, we hope next week, that brings us from behind the curtain and gets the world, especially those on Capitol Hill, to understand the overall impact that this industry has. We reach far, we reach wide in people, in revenue, and in overall impact. So we are working really hard for everybody so that we all get back on our feet really soon. Thank you all for your support. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague from the National Coalition, Isaac Rothwell.
Thank you, Nancy. Hey, everyone in Facebook land, and thanks for joining us tonight. And if you're watching this tomorrow or whenever on YouTube, thanks for checking us out. I just want to kind of give an introduction to the call to talk about what we're going to be covering tonight, and that is talking about the various state coalitions. We've chose to be able to feature 5 of them just for speaker's sake. There are a lot more than 5 that we're collaborating with right now. But just to kind of talk about, all of us kind of understand, most people know that the Live Events Coalition is a grassroots movement. It all started around a petition, and people just, up to almost 500,000 signatures, which happened very quickly in the beginning of this whole pandemic. And behind the scenes, getting phone calls from people who said, hey, we need to come together and we need to get our voices heard of the small businesses, of the freelancers, and what can we do to help? So we formed the Live Events Coalition. And in that time, we always were reaching out and trying to create the thought along the lines as we were going to focus on the federal issues, federal aid. But as things developed, we had more and more conversations with people who were joining us behind the scenes who found out about us. And many people had those same thoughts and ideas of bringing together this broad base of what live events is and anything that touches a live event, and creating new alliances that didn't exist before. And we weren't the only ones with that vision. I think all of us who kind of stepped up and saw leadership, saw that need, that we realized that we weren't necessarily an industry that was recognized before, because we all didn't realize that we were all going to be impacted by the limiting of mass gatherings. We realized, wow, a caterer, a florist who only focuses on events, all these different entities and small businesses are part of this very broad industry that is different from a lot of industries, and that we focus on providing this event in ballrooms, outdoor venues, and all over the nation. So these other people had the same vision. In the last 3 months, we've been able to connect behind the scenes to these different various state coalitions. Tonight, we have the Illinois Events Coalition. We have the Oregon Live Events, I believe, Coalition. I know you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dwayne. And then we also have the New York, New Jersey Live Events Coalition. We have the Colorado Events Coalition. And I believe I get this right. It's the Utah Events Industry Association, I believe. Close enough, but I think I'll get it right when I do these actual introductions. So tonight we really want to take an opportunity to let everyone know, and our supporters right now, that behind the scenes what's been going on lately is really working with the state coalitions to create a broader impact as legislation is starting to move forward, and helping people on the state level reach out to their senators, to their congressmen, to their governors. And these people tonight are going to talk a lot about the activities that are going on behind the scenes at the state level, and how the Live Events Coalition, what we're doing behind the scenes to create basically the coalition of coalitions, that we're working to kind of bring all of us so that we all are aware what everyone's going through and working on the state level, but also to kind of collaborate nationally to make sure things are moving forward on Capitol Hill, and we can all learn from each other what's happening in another state and how we can incorporate it there. So that's pretty much one of the biggest missions of the live events, and our mission statement is talking about creating a unified voice. And that unified voice is about bringing and aligning with other associations like the U.S. Travel Association, Meetings Means Business, go live together. So we're really in NIVA, the National Independent Venues Association, and many others, really trying to bring us all together so we can align our fight. But through the state coalitions is where we've been seeing a lot of progress lately, and how we've been able to impact the conversation in the lobbying efforts on Capitol Hill. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers tonight. First, I want to introduce Dwayne. Dwayne is from the live events industry of Oregon. Dwayne is the owner of Greenlight Creative, an event lighting production company in Portland, Oregon, specializing in corporate events, fundraisers, weddings, and live entertainment. He's a 40-year veteran in the industry, and in late March founded the live events industry of Oregon in response to the devastation brought on by the pandemic shutdown. The LEIO Coalition has been working 7 days a week since then to bring attention to and lobby for assistance for all live events businesses, starting with Oregon, then moving beyond those borders to help other state coalitions with their efforts. Today LEO is working intently with LEC to help create change to benefit live events. Next, I want to introduce Andy Klosterman, CEO of Peak Beverage in Denver, Colorado. Andy has worked since age 18 in the bar and beverage industry with a degree in restaurant and tourism management from SDSU. He's worked his way up through hotels and restaurants and eventually started his company in Colorado in 2013. Peak Beverage provides beverage services for special events all over the state. Next, we have Peter O'Doherty, CEO of SEG Large Video Wall and Production Company, which is Utah-based. He served the events industry in 30-plus states in 2019. He is also the president of the Utah Live Events Industry Association. It was conceived in the summer of 2019 and formed in early 2020 in response to the pandemic. The ULEIA's aim is to bring together many aspects of the live event industry to generate a voice and recognition. Their initial objective is to support through the lockdown, and restart. They are also structuring to exist to support and strengthen the industry through the restart process and into the future. Next, we have Jaclyn Bernstien, president and partner of Access New York Metro, formerly known as Empire Force Events, and a true event production, destination management, and hospitality professional, leader, insider, and champion of New York City. Jaclyn's career began attending the International Live Events Association, ILEA, New York Inception meeting, where she met her first and only employer, as well as who would be her future business partner. Then worked at the company right out of college. A few years later, bought the company, and it's now the longest independently and locally owned destination and management company in New York City. Jaclyn is part of the leadership team of the New York, New Jersey Live Event Coalition. Last, we have Michelle Durpetti. Michelle founded Michelle Durpetti Events in 2008 and is one of the country's top 50 planners in 2018. In addition to having been awarded many other awards over the years as an exceptional and highly respected leader in the industry. Also, to the events she produces, she is also managing partner in her family's 79-year-old business, Jean and Georgetti's, here in Chicago, including the estate and award-winning venue. Michelle is proud to be a co-founder of the Illinois Events Coalition with industry professionals Allie Phillips of Engaging Events and Colin Pearson of Colin Pearson Photography. As part of the Illinois events industry and community for a collective 35 years as wedding and event professionals, they saw and felt the need to support the Illinois industry and are committed to being part of our efforts. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Nancy, if you want to go ahead and get started with our first questions.
Absolutely. So now we get to listen to these amazing people. So I think that I would love to find out from each of you in a short snippet, what prompted you to either start or become part of your state coalition, and how did it come to be? Let's start with Michelle, because you're in the upper left-hand corner of my picture.
I'll start. It's a good place to be. Thanks, Nancy. So how did we get started? Essentially, it's not a super great story. It was, I shared earlier a quote that my dad used to tell me when I was a kid, which was, necessity is the mother of invention. And so when all of this started, and we started seeing, for example, in the restaurant industry, my family's restaurant had been closed for 6 months because we had a fire in October. We were supposed to do a grand opening March 26th. So right around the 15th of March, that impact of restaurants closing and all of a sudden it started to impact events really became something that I felt very viscerally, because it was hitting me from every industry that I am in. And about, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that, I woke up at like 5 a.m. I called Allie Phillips, who is one of my dear friends and also one of the co-founders. Colin, our third co-founder, is also my husband, so he has to listen to me when I get up really early. And I was frustrated. I said, I'm watching the restaurant industry here in Illinois. They have the Illinois Restaurant Association, and nationally there's the National Restaurant Association. Who is speaking for us in this industry of creatives and memory makers and experiential creators? Who is speaking for us? So Allie's really good at research. So I kind of woke her up really early and challenged her to find something. She immediately connected with the DC Events Coalition and then also Live Events Coalition. And both organizations were kind enough, within, I think, moments of us reaching out via direct message. I think Allie reached out on like a Sunday or Saturday night because none of us were working at the time. And so we connected immediately. Nancy, we chatted, I think that within a day or two, with both you and Isaac, and sort of just called you asking, so we're motivated and we're interested and we want to create a place in Illinois where collectively we can come together and speak, because the only way we're going to be heard is that way. So how do we do it? And you were also generous in sharing insights and how to get organized. So we created a name, Illinois Events Coalition. Colin designed our website. And within about, I would say maybe 4 days, we were up and running. And now we have over 300 businesses supporting us, many individuals. And that's kind of where we've been from there. Our focus has mainly been with communicating, on a state and city level with policymakers, trying to learn what they know about events and the events industry, and how to be a part of the conversation. That's really one of our foundational principles. So that's kind of who we are here in Illinois.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, I'm going to throw it over to Andy in Colorado. Andy, why did you guys start the coalition?
Thanks, Nancy. So in Colorado, we started up a little bit differently than I think most of the other coalitions. We actually, one of the largest catering companies here in Colorado, Catering by Design, their president, Sid Sexton, was actually really worried when this initial crisis was hitting us about what was happening to the frontline workers of our industry and what was really going on with all these folks that, from March 14th to March 23rd, essentially all the part-time jobs that we had, full-time jobs that we had on the doing events is just evaporated overnight. So our effort really started as a nonprofit called the Colorado Event Association. And it really was, our initial purpose was to benefit frontline employees. And at the time when we created it, we really didn't know what the impact was going to be, on a local, state, or national level at all. And so that's kind of where we came from. While we were creating that nonprofit, so basically Sid reached out to a number of businesses here in Colorado, including my own, business leaders, and created a board of about 10 of us representing each segment of the industry: audiovisual, beverage, catering, venues, everything, to create the initial nonprofit board. While that was all happening, basically things with shutting down our industry got worse and worse and worse, as I'm sure you all encountered. And I began to see we had individuals reaching out to government. We had small groups of folks here in Colorado reaching out to government. But just like Michelle was saying, we don't have a lobbying organization. We don't have a centralized organization here in Colorado or nationally to represent our industry. And so that's where, my anxiety level kind of spiked. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? How are we having a clear central voice to the government? And so I proposed to Sid, our president, to create a policy committee as part of our nonprofit, because we really didn't have a way to create an unbiased source for the industry to use to communicate. And she thought that was a great idea. And so that's really where our efforts in government communication began. And to this day, our goal is still to get frontline workers back to work as our primary goal of our association, which means opening up the industry is really obviously how we accomplish that. So that's our story here in Colorado.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andy. Peter, can you let us know how Utah started?
Yeah, Nancy, thanks. We started about a year ago. We realized, myself and a few other business owners were discussing that there wasn't really a voice, and that stuff was coming in from out of state when other people were working during the quiet months. And we always spoke about, having a group of people that would make sure that we got together every now and then and looked after the industry and made sure workers got, and we spoke about it. And then obviously January, February, we decided we were going to launch it this year. And then by the end of February or the first week of March, one weekend everything stopped. And that Sunday night we said, maybe we should launch it. We put a Facebook page together and had, I think, 400, 500 people sign up by 11 o'clock the following morning. So we knew it was needed. We got involved with the National Federation for Independent Business, which was a godsend. The state director is Candace Daly, and she basically said, do this, 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 and this. And by Tuesday, I was on the task force. Somebody else put me in elected me as president, so I said I'd do it for a while. And we were on the state task force. And we then really started to formulate what we wanted to do, which was to, very like Colorado, our main objective is to get the industry to survive and get people back to work. We want to do it safely. We want to do it public health. We want to, we don't want to furlough ourselves and go idle and not be ready when this is over. So there's been a lot with that. And we've done well. We're now at a different phase than some states, and we're starting to realign ourselves to address various needs that are out there now. So we're in that little bit of realignment at the moment as to what our purpose is going to be for the next 2 months for now. That's kind of how we got started.
Wonderful. A somewhat different journey, and I'm delighted that you're back to us. How's my friend Dwayne? Can you share with us how you guys jumped in with both feet?
Yeah, we at my company, we lost our first major corporate event the third week in February. It was less than a week from load-in, and it hit us like a ton of bricks, and we knew that something was up. So by the beginning of March, I was already having conversations with several trusted colleagues, who the kind of people that you do happy hour with anyway and talk about your biz, rental company, a DJ, a couple of caterers, so forth, a couple of venues. And the more we talked, the more we realized, there's these people running these petitions. Have you seen this thing, Live Events Coalition? And I said, no. And somebody forwarded me the email. And I, of course, like everybody else, signed on and donated money to change.org. And it seemed pretty impressive. We thought, well, we can do this. And so we ran our own petition, basically to the state, asking for a few quick gimmies like commercial eviction moratorium, because all of these things really mattered at the time. We didn't know how long this was going to go, so we kind of did some softball asks, and lo and behold, got about half of it. We got 2,000 signatures in a matter of about 6 days, which for the little state of Oregon, the little town of Portland, is not bad. It kind of prompted us, what if I tried to get a hold of any of our U.S. senators, because it seems like if this gets any worse, we're going to need some help from the federal government. So we started having conversations with one of our two senators, Ron Wyden, and he said, the events business, so you're talking about venues? Like, oh, well, sure, venues, that's one of our verticals, but there's lots of other industry to this. There's planners and producers and AV companies and caterers and a whole slew of them that are just focused on weddings. And he's like, weddings? Like, weddings is a big industry. And he says, well, how big? How many of you are there? And I had no idea. And it occurred to me, if we're going to be able to impress upon these people that what we do matters and the number of us is bigger than you think, we're going to have to know this. So I set about what I thought would be a couple of day project. Well, let me just communicate to the senator how many businesses there are in Oregon. So a week later, I gathered 2,200 names of businesses and started writing letters. And before you knew it, you're waking up in the shower and you're going, I'm going to have to turn this into something that has actual legs and an actual format. So by the first week in April, we were incorporated. We didn't go the 501 route, in case anybody's wondering. It isn't necessary. We registered as an LLC, limited joint partnership. There are 5 of us that we call ourselves founders, and we have a board of a total of 9 people who are in from the beginning. And we use each other as committee heads and advisors, and we're all working on projects all the time. Now, further in, we're realizing that this might be a thing that goes in perpetuity. As anyone can guess, the industry could be in trouble for a while. So we're already set up, ready to rock. Website's been up for a month. The Facebook group, the private group, is something like 800 people. I haven't looked at our actual join up membership for a while, but all of this we did to be able to prove to our government that an industry here exists and it's bigger than you think. Good news is we have a lot of those metrics now. Bad news is we don't have all of them, and they keep asking. So we keep working on that, and our state is starting to get pretty settled on what their reopening measures are going to be. So we've pulled off of that a little bit, and we've gone full tilt, partnering with Isaac and LEC on writing policy and doing the lobbying piece. Now we're helping other states get rolling. In particular, I've been working really hard on getting Kentucky up and running because Mitch McConnell is one of their 2 senators. And anything that happens for our industry that's going to feel like relief to us is going to go through his door. So we're working really hard to get Kentucky mobilized at this point. And that's kind of our history.
And more.
Dwayne. Last but not least, because I like to bookend the men with the fabulous and powerful women. So we started with Michelle, and we're going to end with Jaclyn.
Thank you. Just the beginning when you kick it off with me. And thank you to my friend Nancy, who I've known for over 20 years. Part of the way I know Nancy is part of the way that I got involved. We met through the International Live Events Association. I'm honored that I'm personally a founding member and now a legacy member. I think there's only 2 of us. Well, me and my business partner are 2 of 30 internationally. But if there's a live events association and there's a live events coalition, and I own a company that produces live events, and we're not doing any of that right now, that was a definite place to get involved. One of the biggest phrases I've been saying from the very beginning is I've been trying to figure out how a business stays in business and doesn't do business for all these months. I have a very big voice from a very big city. I'm from Brooklyn. I live in New York. I'm honored to now be representing New York and New Jersey here. And I believed in my profession, in my history, this is the only company I've ever worked at. I did, because now I work there, I own it, but I didn't come this far to just come this far. And that doesn't mean just me personally, but it means this industry that we saw in the news when everything started to shut down, that they kept mentioning about gatherings and conferences and meetings. So our industry was finally getting a place out there in the media, but unfortunately it was in a way that we just didn't want to have it being heard. And unfortunately, as we know, as we keep moving forward, we know, as the saying goes, we're going to be one of the last to open. So we need to figure out, like the bookending, what are we going to do in this middle so we can get to that other side? Because of my involvement with the DMC, the Destination Magic Company Coalition, and the work that we're doing, and I sit on the board of directors of NYC & Company, which is the Destination Marketing Organization, Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB of New York City, and I represent the events sector. That's my role. And they have a recovery effort that I'm working on, their coalition. I knew that when I saw Isaac's petition, when it came out, what was it, March 19th, and we all start seeing it, I'm thinking, who are these people? And got involved because I was speaking with other event professionals on Zooms like we're all doing. And Elaine on your national leadership came to me, Eileen, which I should know that's my middle name, Eileen. But then Nancy also came to me and said, we want to get you involved. And at the time that Nancy came to me, I understand that Anthony Girardi, who I guess we're kind of partners in this, Anthony Girardi are partners in sound in New Jersey, I'm the New York part, he was reaching out to Isaac. He wanted to get involved. And then he was referred to Nancy. So Nancy's speaking to me saying, do you know Anthony? And at the same time, Anthony's saying to Nancy, if I'm going to get involved in this, I got to get Jack Bernstien involved. That's how this profession works. That's how we've all serviced our clients. That's how we've all partnered together, all of our vendors. So it only makes sense that the New York, New Jersey coalition would come to where it is based on someone like me being loud and proud and representing our epicenter, as we've been called, but also with Anthony and the other colleagues that are on our executive leadership that are handling this. As far as our coalition and task force in the New York, New Jersey area, our history of timing, think about it, the Live Events Coalition's only been around since March. We've only been around the past couple of weeks, but we're making a lot of headway, which we're going to get to. But I'm just honored that I'm able to be able to use what I do in connecting and collecting people, and again, my voice with all of you to be able to do what we need to do in a city and a state, especially like New York and New Jersey, as you know, not to take away from yours, but how hard we've been hit here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think that the common denominator here is twofold. Number one, that we are all some of the most passionate and committed professionals to an industry that we love and an industry that we refuse to let die. They've messed with the wrong people. And this is part of many more coalitions, and all of you out there who it's really hard to have a conversation, and I'm looking at my panelists and myself and not the folks, that we know that we will survive this. It is not going to be easy, but it is all of the activities taking place from all of the different coalitions and New York that is going to make an impact. One quick update, because I will forget. Dwayne talked about metrics. You, if you are connected to us through the Facebook group or through any of the coalitions, we will be sending out a survey. We ask that all of you answer that survey. It is going to provide critical data to those who need to know, oh no, we're not just venues. And for Dwayne's knowledge, the wedding business, and I'm not a wedding planner, Michelle can confirm this, it's $100 billion alone. So from a power standpoint, we have to remember that this industry is really, really powerful. And as Isaac said, it reaches far and wide. What I'd like to do now is kind of open this up and kind of have a conversation. You know, Jaclyn's in New York. They're not opening anytime soon. But I believe Peter and Dwayne, I think you're further than we are. DC is in phase 1. We can be together with 10 people. Can either of you share, though I know Jaclyn is on the committee that's helping with that, but Dwayne or Peter, can you talk to, or any of you who might be on reopening plans, talk about how and what you're seeing about the safety of reopening and kind of what each state is expecting?
It's maddeningly confusing. Our governor is great, but she's a little reticent about getting information in a timely way because she's always afraid of blowback. So it seems like she's constantly protecting her six. That said, the recommendations that are out officially for phase 2, which our county, Multnomah in Portland, the by far the largest population center in the state, we haven't even gotten to phase 1. The rest of the state is in phase 1. Some of them are almost ready to qualify for phase 2. Has to be 3 weeks between phases automatically. So the phase 1's meaningless to the events business. Phase 2 was largely thought until a week ago to be 50 people when it happens, which we all said, fine, so still not us really. And overnight it changed to 250. They dropped the announcement last Friday morning, and there it is at 250. The caveat being that the events operators and venues have to maintain the same percentage of floor space that restaurants do in order to get to social distancing. I believe that number is 33%. So the 250 is a lovely number if you have a farm, if it's an outdoor situation, or a convention center exhibit floor. But it doesn't fix a lot for us. It'll fix a little. If you're a medium-sized venue, you'll see a little bit coming back. If you're a planner, you're certainly going to have something to do. Rental companies, I think, are going to be busy. Major production stuff isn't going to happen. There's no theaters are going to open, not a single one, and not a movie theater, not a performance venue, not a legitimate theater. It's just not going to happen. Phase 3, by the way, is after there's a cure for the virus.
Again, that's confusing as well. In DC, that's phase 4, not phase 3. So it's not even like we can figure out who we're all in the same phases. The phases seem to be the same. The numbers are never the same. So if you're confused, trust me, you're in this with us. Peter, what's going on in Utah?
Well, first off, we don't have phases, we have colors. So that makes it even more confusing. And green is not go. Green is the lowest level of lockdown, I guess. So, I mean, there is a an understanding, which is almost a misunderstanding, that we're reopening. There is a trickle, like Oregon and everywhere. Our theaters are not opening, our indoor venues are not opening. We had a statewide reopening committee call today, and we just went through one of the venues and what it's going to do and how it's going to work forward. And there's still a lot of work to do for the indoor venues. What we've concentrated on is we've picked events and things that we think should be allowed at each level. We've worked within the guidelines, and we're very lucky. Youth has been active in publishing guidelines as well, worth looking at, and asking questions of people what amendments should be made. And we've spoken with the Live Events Coalition. We have a document that now says organized events can self-certify as long as they fill in this form that we helped design that shows exactly how you're going to meet the rules. The catering side of it has to follow restaurant guidelines. The retail side of it, or vendor side, follows the retail guidelines. And capacity was originally defined as 10 people, like everyone, and then, you know, that made our state fair park, each person would have 2 acres to themselves. So obviously that was a very clear message that we need to review it, and then the review took place again. And now we're starting to look at things like one-way traffic, separate entrances, high sanitation, face masks, and it's chipping away at ice. You take a bit off it, and then you go back for some more. And we don't want the floodgates to open and then find that we get shut down again. So we're unhappy that it's taking what it's taking to do it, but at the same time, it's steady progress. We are going to have some rodeos. We're going to have some drive-ins. We've had some graduations. We actually were involved, my company and some other companies were involved in a sit-down graduation. Now, it was 3 seats with a little picket fence around each person, but it was a sit-down graduation. We have some small horse events going on. We have NASCAR West are going to go and visit the racetrack, and 600 or 800 spectators are going to be allowed in. And it's working with the local commissioners and the local health departments has helped that. And yet we have a county, Summit County, where I am, which is still one of the strictest in the States. You know, it's very hard to run anything up here. So we've got a balance within our state, and it's some wins and some battles still remaining.
Michelle, is Chicago doing any reopening at this point? I should know this because that's close to where Isaac is, and we talk 14 times a day, but I don't think that I know the answer to that.
Don't feel bad because we don't either.
Okay.
So what's happening here is we have the state of Illinois who moved into phase 3 before the city of Chicago. So the city and the state are sort of moving at different paces, mainly due to things like positivity rate and all of that. So there were certain criteria that needed to be reached in the state. The city hadn't gotten there yet. So while, for example, the shelter in place lifted all at the same time, suburban restaurants were able to open their outdoor spaces before Chicago city-based restaurants were. So, and here in Illinois, we actually have 5 phases, not 4. So we're in phase 3 at the moment. And it looks like the earliest we may move into the next phase is probably the end of June somewhere. I'm not quite sure. We're hearing that we may be events up to 50 people in that phase. We're hearing some information that our phase 4 is going to last a really long time. So similar to how everybody feels on all of the coalitions, here in Illinois, we feel very strongly that what we're doing right now is very important, but that the coalition needs to stay because the messaging becomes more important the longer this goes. And as you mentioned earlier, yes, there's a beginning and an end. The middle is really important. And so how we get from here to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. And as I believe Dwayne had mentioned earlier, it's going to take a while before things are anywhere near where they were before this started. So here in Illinois, it's funny, we always joke in Chicago, like, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes because it changes. And we sort of feel like the information we get feels a little bit like the weather. So, but we're doing our best to take it as it comes, process it, and apply it in an intellectual and realistic way. It's never boring, I can say that.
Who have you been able to engage with and discussing about and getting some representation for your coalition in the reopening plan?
So we have had multiple conversations. Our outreach started almost about 2 weeks into when we founded the coalition. We wrote several letters. We reached out to every state elected official that we could. So we sent about 26 or so letters out, and we've spoken to Senator Dick Durbin. We've spoken to several, Danny Davis's office, several different representatives on the state level. We then connected with DCEO, which is the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which is an extension of the governor's office. And we've been in conversation with them as well. And they are the ones that are really responsible on the state level for how the phases are going to roll out. And in the city level, there's another organization. So we've been making headway with that as well. And that's basically, we do that on a daily basis. We just go through all of our lists. We have multiple conversations. We were on the phone with the governor's office earlier this week, and they are working on a lot of things, but unfortunately a lot of what gets discussed on those calls, we're not able to discuss yet, which is equally as frustrating as satisfying as the progress is making it into those calls, right? Then you have these supporters that you feel a responsibility to, you want to inform, and we can't because the information's not ready to be released yet. So it's an interesting kind of back and forth.
Absolutely. Andy, I know Colorado, you guys had a really great reopening plan. If you want to talk a little bit about that, I think it ties into Nancy's question.
Yeah, I mean, and to the other folks here too, I think the huge thing that we're all now finding out is that, the government isn't this perfect system that exists, that just like laws, come from some mathematical equation every single time. We're finding right now that especially the state governments and local governments, they're just completely overwhelmed. They can't handle the volume of complexity that every single industry really that exists in their state needs. Highly complicated protocols to follow to be able to produce safe results. And so that's why now you're seeing this massive shift toward the government really looking toward the people, to us, to give them those answers. And what we're finding is that the governments that are more willing to do that are progressing a lot faster than those who are not. So on our end, we hit this thing as fast as we possibly could. In late March, what we did is we established contact with the state government very early on. And I'm not sure how the heck we did that. We had a member of ours that has a relative or something like that in there, and the state governor's office here, they kind of segmented themselves by industry, I believe. And so we had sort of like this voice in the state government from the very beginning, actually, which was incredibly valuable for us. So what we did is, and I think a huge message to anyone working on the state level would be, take the work off their plate and do it yourself and propose a solution instead of a problem. So what we did was our coalition now is about 600 members at least that are active. In March, we created, essentially, we segmented our industry by, I think there was like 6 main components: planners, venues, caterers, bar service, AV, that sort of thing. And we developed working groups off of each of those segments with a lead for each of the segments. And then literally within 7 days, each segment proposed safety protocols that would work for their segment. And we combined those into one master document. And that master document then dictated the criteria in which we thought that our industry could safely reopen in a phased manner, like everyone's been recommending. And so that's how we really started. So the government actually took that plan that we had created and asked other industries to follow suit with that format. And then, so recently, though, what we found is, and we had such success in the beginning with that, and they loved everything that we were doing, and we were expecting June 1 to be a big day for us. However, June 1 came and went, and obviously that was exactly when the time of all the protests and everything were happening too. So now that's interfering with, yet again, a complex problem on top of a complex problem for the state government. So now it's just, chaos. So anyways, right now where we're at is we're really trying to get recognition as a separate and distinct entity. We've been told like basically loopholes that we can fall within, following restaurant guidance and that sort of thing. But our message is that they need to listen to us, and they need to follow the format that we had proposed earlier. So we actually have a call with our governor on Monday, where there'll be over 500 business owners and managers of Colorado on that call. And the governor himself will have to speak to our industry. So I thought that would be a good thing to schedule. And what I didn't realize while scheduling that was that now that has been scheduled, the governor's office is all of a sudden rushing to sort of like fix things before the governor's meeting with our industry on Monday. And so we're seeing a lot of good progress. We're seeing a lot of headway with that effort.
It's what you said about, providing solutions. You'd be surprised that is literally what politicians say to us. How do we fix it? They don't know. We want to believe that they know, but clearly they don't know. And particularly with our industry, we have to help educate them. And I think that across the board, state coalitions, national coalition, that's part of what we're trying to help them understand and educate on what does that mean and how are we going to make that happen. Jaclyn, go ahead, Andy. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the government, if you haven't done a lot in politics, folks think that the government might be this like omniscient, perfect, source for clarity in their life. But, when crises like this happen, I mean, the government is just people. It's not possible for a small group of people to define to the level of complexity that currently needs to be defined solutions that work for our industry. And so it's important for us all to understand that, because if you understand how they think, then we can better communicate with government on all levels and help them out to help us out.
And in terms of those actions, that is why the state coalitions are so critical. It's important on your state level.
You can't have conflicting opinions from the same industry go to the government, because then it creates inaction. So
the state coalitions are working and performing amazing work on a state level, which then helps us on the national level bring those issues forth, because there's already action in locales where you live. Remember, you are the constituents. You are who get them elected. They have to listen to you, and it's critical. So, Dwayne mentioned that we're trying to get Kentucky on board. Part of the reason is that Mitch McConnell's not going to listen if nobody within Kentucky cares. And so if it doesn't rattle his house, he doesn't care. Jaclyn, you have a situation, I think, similar to Michelle's, where Manhattan is not reopening, yet I believe upstate New York has had more opening than that. So in your area, it's an even more complex reopening. And I believe you're working with them on the reopening plans. Is that correct?
Well, when you think of Manhattan, when you think of New York City is made up of the 5 boroughs: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island, and Queens. Some New Yorkers might wonder why I said it in that order, because I would have probably said Brooklyn first. But anyway, you think of New York City as Manhattan, which I live. And then we have the suburban areas, and I'm sure you've all seen our governor reporting each day, and you know that you have Westchester, Rockland counties, Nassau, and Suffolk, Long Island, and just starting upstate. So, the New York City, of which you saw in the news, I don't have to report anything that's been in the news or anything that you can read online. Yes, we're in phase 1, which we just started on Monday. And as far as phase 2 would be, that's when restaurants would open, but with outdoor dining. You might have seen our City Streets, our Open Streets program, where they can open streets, because it's part of the challenge why New York City was hit so hard, because we're just so dense. So we're going to need to expand how that outdoor dining would look and feel and actually physically operate here in New York City. But there are parts of the state, yes, upstate, that have been open, and they're into phase 2 now as well. It's separate from me personally and talking about what the phases are in New York City and New York State and New Jersey, excuse me. I have to always make sure I'm representing the 2 states. What the positive part is when we're talking about reopening is that our coalition is working alongside actually a venue coalitions that have started. In New York City, there is the BEST coalition, which is the Banquet Event Strategic Task Force. They're actually a task force. And it's made up of some of the top major names in venues and caterers and hotels. And they are engaged in working with a communications agency that is working with the governor's office. Because as we've all been saying here, if they're going to open, they're going to need to learn from us how we operate. But of course, we're all respecting everyone that's listening, everyone on this call. There's the CDC, there's the World Health Organization, there's the federal, state, city health departments. We know we have to abide by those rules and orders, but obviously we should be a part of helping them when it comes to the actual events, because event has to take place in a venue, whether it's a small meeting room somewhere or Michelle in a event room in your restaurant, or whether it's out in a huge field where Peter's talking about the rodeos. All those are venues, and whatever they look like, they're all different, but they all have different guidelines, but they all are going to need some structure. Similarly, in New Jersey, the parts of our coalition are working with another venue organization in New Jersey that has a direct line to their governor. So we're on track to do what we need to do. And we want to make sure that for the opening, we think about the venues, but then there's so many other types of vendors that we all need to think about and respect, whether it be the social planners, me as a corporate event producer, intermediary, and then of course, every type of vendor that there is, from magicians. I mean, we're all watching a lot of Zoom shows, and you're seeing a lot of illusionists and magicians out there. How are they going to do their craft in this kind of world that we're going to be living in, that we are thinking about? So, it's much as when a lot of organizations were putting out their own PPE guidelines, health guidelines, and how they were going to do it. We need to follow what is going to come down to us, but we also need to be a part of that, part of our industry as well. And when we talk about restaurants opening, I think that's going to be very telltale for how we're going to start doing food and beverage services at our private events. So we need to work alongside them. It's been very exciting that, and for me, when I talk about also why I've gotten involved, that to know that a major force in our industry in Washington is the United States Travel Association, US Travel, USTA, and they're in their organization, they have the Meetings Mean Business Coalition that really ties into maybe what we're talking about. Even if you're a wedding planner or a social planner, you got to think that it's some sort of meeting and they're representing you. And the US Travel with the National Restaurant Association, with the SBA, was able to work on the Reform Act for the PPP. So us aligning here at the Live Events Coalition with the US Travel, not only with the work that they're doing for advocacy, which is our foremost reason why we're here, but then also with the reopening process, is going to be very, very powerful. And it's going to help us get the message out there, because we were talking about phases. People keep saying, well, what phase are you in New York? And I say, well, we're in phase 5. And they say, there is no phase 5. And I say, unfortunately, and exactly, that's where we're at. So I don't want to joke about it, but we have to try. We're entertainers in our profession, right? So except those that produce the funerals. We were talking about that earlier. So hopefully we can be part of that message with our constituents here. While we're asking for advocacy and help financially, we're also going to help for the safety of when we're doing gatherings, no matter what they may look like in a public restaurant or a private event that we're doing.
Wonderful. So I'd like to get some questions in from our audience. And, I know that people have lots to do. Isaac, I noticed one, and I'm not sure if you noticed any other, because I keep going back and forth. There was a question of Sean, who that said he has had some clients cancel because of their fear of legal repercussion should somebody get ill. it is an ongoing issue. I'm going to throw it out there to see if any of you have had any conversations. Isaac, I know that there is something in some of the bills that we've talked about, but does anybody have a response for Sean?
Yeah, well, in Utah, we have a House Bill 3007 that was passed. And other than gross negligence on behalf of an organizer or a company, we are protected in the same way that an insurance claim against catching the flu somewhere can't be proven. So, it's the incubation period was so long that they had to act to do that, and that's helped our industry. There is still confusion if we leave the state, and we had a senator on one of our calls recently, and he spoke about different aspects and approaches to that, and that's not been finalized yet. But I think there's going to be some agreement across states. So I think just keep watching the space and see what your state's legislation is.
And I believe that there's also, much like the self-certification document that you said, I think there's going to be some things that you're going to have to follow to make sure that there is no way for somebody to say that you were negligent because you followed the rules.
We also have heard there's some events people that are actually have lawyers have drafted up waivers of liabilities that people are signing when they go into events. The other piece is, I know there's a PREA Act out there. It is actually not specifically for this, but there may be something that slipped into it. So PREA kind of is creating similar to, it's federally backed insurance. So if there's a second wave, hopefully right now the bill is out there. It hasn't passed yet, but it would create, it would make sure pandemics are covered, and as far as business disruption insurance and also event cancellations. But this wouldn't happen until 2021 if the bill is even passed, but it would be some federally backed insurance. I do know in speaking with U.S. Travel and their priorities that a national liability amnesty is kind of a piece of legislation that they'd like to see passed, and they know that Senator McConnell's office sees this as a very important piece of legislation. It would be nice if it happened a little quicker. I think we need to start seeing it here shortly, because events in certain states are starting to open up. But I think the piece of to Sean's question, I think, there is that fear. Creating a liability waiver may help that ease. I know a lot of corporate clients are not going to feel comfortable yet sending in there, and that's going to be the hardest people to convince is the large corporations, because it's not just the liability as much as it's optics, and that's just as much in liability as for them. So it's going to really take a big piece of us, just being very cognizant of it, not shoo-shooing those concerns away, but trying to address them through some very smart conversations we have with them, and letting them know kind of the precautions that are being put in place to help mitigate potential liabilities. But at the same time, it just depends on the client and the situation of having that conversation, because retail stores are able to open and people are going to stores, and if you're following what the guidelines are, and as Peter said, there's not gross negligence, you should at this point in time be able to host events as long as you are within the guidelines without liabilities. Again, to the disclaimer, we are not legal experts.
That is, go to your lawyer or go to your government representatives on that one.
Just to add to that real quick, is having options is something that we've discussed here. We haven't seen the outcome of it yet, but having an option for someone who may want to watch it as a drive-in rather than get out of their car, or someone who wants to be in a much more distanced location at your event, if it's possible. It gives people, it adds a little bit of certainty for those people, and gives you a little bit more saying you tried.
Mm-hmm. There was a quick question I saw here from Victoria about supplementing live events that have capacity issues with social distancing with live streams of these events. And I think we have seen some of that happening with the live streams. And I think people are supplementing. I don't know if any of you want to comment to that question, if you've seen anyone or have participated in that, where you're seeing a live stream hybrid where people are actually there in person and then working with live streaming to expand capacity.
And we have 3 major clients who are already switching to that model. And that's because they've been doing 100% virtual since March. And so they're already getting some comfort with it, but they're sensing the need to, that it's getting old. So we are seeing now that our state is kind of sort of telling us there's kind of sort of going to be events. We're seeing hybrid things where they'll do some sort of a VIP cadre in a room, and then the rest of the population chimes in via whatever online medium you have. And I think that's going to be picking up some steam for corporate. We'll see come fall when it's fundraiser season again. Everything in the spring switched to virtual, of course. We'll see if they go to a hybrid. No comment yet on that, but corporate for sure is already moving that direction.
The nonprofit industry, the call that I was on before this, we literally were having a conversation about their January event and what are they going to do? It's a 900-person event, and are we going to be able to do that? And brainstorming of, can you do this this is an inaugural event, can you do this inaugural event where you can have 250 people in one room and 250 people in another room and 250 people in another room? Or are we better off doing a hybrid, and at a certain level of sponsorship, you can be inside, and at another level, you're not? It is, for those of us who are in this industry, in the planning and side of things, it is an interesting new way to think about an experience. We're storytellers, and we create live memories, basically, whether or not they are meetings, weddings, bar mitzvahs, corporate events, or fundraisers. And how do we get creative and assure our clients that the outcome that they need is achievable? Michelle, have you seen any of that in the social market in terms of, I've seen some of the Zoom weddings, but as they move forward to hopefully a time where more people can be together, has there been discussion about these hybrid events?
There's a lot of discussion within the industry. We haven't had any discussion necessarily on those state or citywide calls that we're on. We haven't really talked about that, but we've seen, even in this smaller phase where people are able to have, maybe up to 6 people together, they're definitely integrating in Zoom so family members can participate and be there while ceremonies and things like that are happening. Throughout the wedding industry, the big feeling is, love is not canceled. So this is something that's very important to everybody in the industry. Our clients, that they're emotionally invested, not more so than other types of events, but in a different way, because it's their wedding, right? And it's this thing that they've visualized for so long. So it takes a minute to really get them to the point where they're open to really consider those kinds of things. It even took, all of my clients have now obviously moved into 2021. And this is something that across the country, everyone in the wedding side of this industry is discussing. And it took me a long time. I just had one finally move last week because she was like, well, do you think November? And I was like, what do you say? So yeah, I believe that people are having the conversations. I think people are now becoming more willing. I think as it becomes more of a reality that this is here for a length of time that we are still right now not certain about, I think people are becoming more open to adapting. And I think that's, again, necessity brings that need to be creative. And unfortunately it's a terrible time, but ingenuity and creativity in our industry is always incredible. And I think it speaks a lot to the character and sort of the bedrock of who we are as an industry, that given this great time of uncertainty, given the fact that how we've done things all this time is out the window, and what is coming to the forefront in these discussions, the options that are being discussed and all the various things for all different kinds of events, it is inspiring, I think.
I would agree. I also think that technology is helping the virtual event. In March, I'm not sure that creating events to the degree that we are in a virtual setting is the same as it is today, or the same as it's going to be 2 months from now, if we're still having this discussion.
Jaclyn had something she wanted to chime in on this question too.
Well, it was interesting that the question before about talking about liability, and obviously people are going to be traveling in. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of the coalition, but I also own a corporate event production destination magic company, and most of our clientele, the guests, are going to be traveling into, let's say, this destination. Mm-hmm. So as much as that the liabilities are concerned, the DMC coalition is working on with the lawyer that's engaged, that's at a DMC, those things for our contract specific to those guests that come in. Wasn't there a point at a certain point you had to come in and quarantine for 14 days? Who's going to go for a 3-day conference for 17 days or then quarantine when they get home? What if they even get sick in your destination? But that question and that comment also ties into about the virtual and hybrid meetings. We've all been doing virtual meetings right now for these past 3 months. We're in a virtual meeting right now. So many platforms are out there. I don't think many of us, except if you're a tech production company, you were thinking about the experience for the guests on a virtual platform back in January, right? It happened. There were reasons why you might do webcasting and all, but it wasn't going to be the total norm 100%. Now that we will still be opening, or destinations will be opening, we have to consider the hybrid. It's almost, I feel, part of what the Live Events Coalition in the next hour phase is going to have to think about, how you're doing an event, because you had to obviously lower the amount of people that are at the event based on the word that I've made up, spatiality. A room that held 500 might only let you put in max 250, if not less. But how then do you capture that experience for those people that are, the experience of the people that are there that are enjoying the event, and then the people that are doing what we're doing, sitting at home, no shoes on, watching it? How does that work? What are going to be all the regulations that we have to work with in that hybrid scenario? Because really, although some of your destinations have opened, I don't really believe you've done that full hybrid experience yet. And that's where I think that we're really going to have to see how that's going to work. And let's be realistic for those clients that are listening out there. This is not necessarily going to be less expensive. You and your corporations are going to have to think about investing. If you as a corporation are making the decision it's not safe, we can't put our corporate executives, our clients that we're inviting in harm's way. Then how are you going to give them that experience? It's not just doing a wine tasting and sending wine to their home in the format we're in now, but now it's going to be something live and that you want to invest in it. So we're hoping that we can keep our live experiences alive and our companies viable to do that for them.
Yeah. I think to Jaclyn's point too, to piggyback, is even as we are reopening, are definitely going to need hybrid events, because you're going to have the people. If part of reopening is isolating people who are in high risk categories and they're not going to be able to attend events, so we're going to have to provide an avenue for them to participate, and it is going to be through hybrid events. And I do think here in the next 4 months we're going to see some new technology. I know our firm, we're working on what they're calling, it's like a 4D virtual presentation, kind of similar to how when we did live events and we could bring someone in remotely as a hologram with some of that, but using actually some cameras and green screens to actually make a presenter feel and look a little differently on the screen. So there are going to be some things, because this is something that, necessity breeds innovation. So people are out there building some of these new technologies. And I know we're working on some of that, and you're probably going to see some of that coming out soon.
Look, one of my least favorite comments from a client is when they say, but we always did it that way. So apparently it's coming back to haunt us. And COVID has said, nope, you don't get to do it that way anymore. But I think that this is a really innovative industry, and I think that we are going to come up with some good stuff. Yes, Isaac.
Yeah, I think we can keep going a little longer. We're over time, but this conversation is really great. I think one thing we might want to hit on is talking about some of the successes we're starting to see in the lobbying efforts, and just so that way everyone can kind of know, because I know a lot of everyone on this call has had some successes in connecting on the federal level and working on legislation and kind of what we're working on and what we're seeing. I mean, right now we're looking and speaking with our lobbying and our firm, is that right now there are going to be potentially some new legislation coming through, but it's probably going to be waiting. Kind of the phase 4 reopening is going to be in July, but we can we can let everyone kind of speak to their kind of feedback they've gotten on engaging their representatives and their senators.
Dwayne, I'm going to start with you.
Fair enough. So to the states out there, I would say the first thing is to, if you haven't already, don't at all be afraid to pick up the phone and or the typewriter keyboard. Did I say typewriter? Wow.
You did, but that's okay.
Keyboard, and write to those senators. I'm focusing on the senators for one big reason, that the Senate is going to be where it gets signed, and a lot of small business issues are going to have the hardest time with the balance politically in Senate. Most of the congressional issues, the representatives are going to be on our side. It's less of a fight with your representatives. Do talk to them also, but don't be afraid to pick up the phone. What I have found is, to a fault, they're incredibly open and willing to hear you out. Express your case. Be sure you have metrics in front of you, because they will at some point ask, what is this going to cost us? The key thing, two things that we've heard are, number one, it's going to have to get past Senator McConnell in Kentucky. Number two, please know that Congress will not be able to make your businesses whole again. To the extent that we are a sort of hero, not like a first responder hero, not like a military hero, but we're a kind of a community hero, I guess you'd call it, because we've shut down and shut up, and first down, last out. To that extent, there is an appetite in Congress to give us a little love. There will be some more forgiveness coming up. It won't be all of it, though. It'll, in no case will it be enough to tide you over until our businesses get normal sometime, maybe in 2021, if that seems like it's the luckiest we can hope for. So that's the first thing I just say is start that conversation. Find out who the business liaison to your two senators are, and get to know them. And always, 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 when you talk to them, thank them for everything that's happened so far. Say thank you. Say it more than once. Say thank you more than you ask for things. The next thing is, don't be afraid to say, hey, we've looked at this piece of legislation we saw floated. Let's say the restart bill that LEC is looking at. Send it to them. Say, what's your take on this? Should my industry get behind it? You'll be surprised the conversation you can have. We had great luck very early on asking for the PPP reform. There's no way a tiny little coalition in the state of Oregon could take credit for it finally passing, but we feel pretty proud that we were on the right side of history on that one. We lobbied hard for that. And we're going to continue to lobby hard for other things. Right now, though, the big thing to remember is you need to know what it is you can get away with asking for and what you can't. You ask for a bill that sounds wonderful and there's no appropriations for it, there's no way to pay for it, it's a complete waste of time. They're going to ask you, what does this cost? Every time. So that's something we all have to really focus on. Those metrics are going to have to come from somewhere. But yeah, that's my recommendation. Pick up the phone, start typing an email, and don't stop until one of them calls you back. They will. It will take you 2 weeks, but they will.
Michelle needs to get going. Michelle, was there anything you want us to share about successes you've had in Illinois? Some of your biggest successes that you guys felt?
Yeah, actually, we were really lucky when we started drafting the letters that we wanted to send. We spoke with someone who worked. She was a lobbyist, and she's now in public affairs here in Illinois. And in terms of drafting the letters and then taking it one step farther, once we had the contact, how to speak to elected officials and policymakers and all of that, Dwayne's right. Thank you goes so far, because so much of what they hear kind of is animosity based right now. So when you can go with polite and sort of lead and say, like, we want to be a resource to you, we want to have a conversation and start a dialogue, they love that. We've also found that the quantifiable data that we talked about earlier, who we are as an industry, what we contribute financially, and then how we're impacted. Those are really good things we always like to bring to the forefront immediately. And we always go in with a clear-cut ask. So here's who we are, here's what we contribute, here's how we're impacted, and then here's what we're asking for. And in that sort of section of the conversations that we have, we like to always answer questions with a question and say to them, like, is our industry something you're familiar with? Is anything that you're currently working on something that resonates with what we're saying? We've even had Colin, my husband, who's one of our co-founders, even to one of Senator Durbin's aides, said to him, you've been to weddings, right? You've attended weddings, so you understand what these are. You understand your press briefings are an event. You understand that during election season, you have fundraisers and all of that. So what we found is when we're asking the questions and making the asks, make it personal so that it resonates with them. And that's something that has really helped us make progress, because then they have this like aha moment where all of a sudden they're on your page. You're not just speaking at them, you're dialoguing with them. And so we found that to be really valuable. So again, make sure you can explain who you are, how you contribute to the economy that you are in on a statewide level or citywide level. How you've been impacted, and then, what you need, what you're asking for. And then again, within there, just be willing to ask questions, and then also be prepared for a lot of follow-up because they're very busy, as Andy has said, and he was so right. They're doing this with so many different industries, and they're trying to find their footing just as much as we are. So that's where advocacy, like Jaclyn mentioned, advocacy becomes important. We have to be accountable for our own advocacy in the sense of like virtually knocking all the time and saying, hello, we're here, we're following up. So that would be my 2 cents for those that are considering moving in the direction that we are all moving in. Come on in. But that would be my word of advice.
Michelle, I know you have to run, but
I have to close the restaurant. Otherwise I would stay on all night.
That's okay. Yeah. So I want to thank you. Anybody that's in Illinois out in our wonderful audience, I believe that Isaac put the website in the chat box. If not, you can reach Isaac or I at the Live Events Coalition, and we will make sure that we direct you to Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy and Isaac, and thank you to everybody on this call. It's always great. It's always great to be inspired by all of the work that you're doing. It really is.
We're all in this together. Thanks, Michelle. We'll talk real soon.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Wonderful.
Can I just jump on that last question that we're talking about right now? And that is, think about timing and how everything proceeds. And, I keep saying the good old days back in February, but think about what we're coming up right now with the Republican National Convention, the Democratic National Convention election year. Sometimes just put it into a perspective that a politician will understand. How do you think those conventions, whether it's your political party convention or whether it be the XYZ convention that has nothing that you might even focus on, or any small meeting or just a rally where you're speaking, the logistics, the permitting, the equipment that gets there, the people that get there moved, that is what we should focus on. The word conventions was so much in the news and trade shows and gatherings again when this all started. And now here we are coming up to the summer, that is just a way. I know that we put that in our letter in the New York, New Jersey area. Think of any political fundraising or rally event, anything you've been to. How do you think that happens if it wasn't for us people doing this live event experience?
Excellent.
Sure. Andy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me too, this highlights the critical need of the Live Events Coalition, because if we were just a bunch of disparate states representing ourselves, we would have a lot less voice when we're talking to our senators and our representatives. So, it's very, very important that folks support this organization on a national level, because that's really where the majority of the funding support, if not all the funding support that our businesses are going to get, are going to come from. You probably heard from state and local governments that they're running out of money just as fast as all of our businesses are. So really that's the importance for everyone to understand of all of these states coming together and having a unified voice to represent our industry. So I wanted to comment on that. And yeah, I mean, here in Colorado, we've got a meeting with Bennett, who next week, who is one of the co-sponsors for the Restart Act, which is, I think, our main target right now on a national level. And we have a Republican and a Democratic senator right now, and both of them are very behind that. So yeah, we've just found, reach out to your senators, have that conversation, and then, but also cite the Live Events Coalition. You've got to make sure that the voice on the federal level, on the national level, is known, because that's really where everything comes from, I think, on that level. So that'd be my.
Peter, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of people have said and on the points there. I think it's all very, very key to it. I think one thing to be aware of is, as well, is work with the people that have been appointed by your representatives. You know, they have staff, they have task forces. Join the task force, be a quiet, effective voice on that. Prove yourself worthy of comment, find out what they're working on, help them with what they're working on. Be someone that they'll reach out to, that when the Restart Act is coming up for vote, they'll think, whoa, I better find out something about this. They might reach out to you. And if you've done that through proving yourself and working with the staff and the people they've appointed, then you have a little bit more influence than if you're just knocking their door every day. Think of it like marketing your event company, you know, let people know you're there and that you have knowledge and you can do stuff. And if they ring you, then your influence is double what it would be if you rang them.
You know, I think
that's my last ad.
I think it's no different, guys, and everybody says we can make change if we vote. That is the one thing that we all have the ability to do. We have the ability to vote. So if you don't like how a politician is behaving, you go in and you vote. This is our ability to use our voice, and our voices are very powerful. Andy, thank you for your statements about national. I think it's one of the things that our industry has been very kind of separated. We've kind of all operated maybe not together within our own pillars, and that's wonderful. If there's a silver lining to this horrific situation we're all in, is that we've realized that we are really important to we're important to the economy of the United States in ways that, I will be perfectly honest, and I've been at this for 30 years, I couldn't have fathomed, because I don't ever think in $100 billion number. But we all have a voice, and those voices are important. And so it's critical that you write letters, that you make those phone calls, that you become involved in the national coalition, in your local coalitions. If there isn't one in your state, please contact Isaac and I, and we will help you get one started in your state, or we will put you to Dwayne and he will help you get started in your state. There is an ability to participate in a letter writing campaign at each of the state level coalitions. As I said, there's a survey that is going to be coming out. All of these things and your voices need to be heard. And I think that no one on this call would beg to differ. It is a lot of work, and it's an honor. It's an honor to know that we are trying really hard for all of us to save our industry so that we survive until we do reopen. But everybody needs to participate, and you have the ability to do that. So does anybody have any closing remarks, Isaac?
Yeah, I think there was a quick question from Sean. He talked about the article from Michael Strickland, and we've had Michael Strickland on the town hall a couple weeks ago, and he's doing really great work advocating for the industry with his political connections. And I do agree, like I think all of us know right now, that we're going to see in the next couple of weeks some very interesting things may develop with what's gone on in the nation with these protests and these large gatherings in the streets, and what the results of that are will kind of may change things on the reopening and may affect our industry and whatnot. So I do agree with that. As we close out, I think I'd just give a quick update on kind of the legislative priorities right now. We are working. We have probably a month before the next CARES Bill Act. We are actively seeking the correct bills and trying to influence the bills to be tailored to what the live events industry needs, and our allies, and with NEVA and U.S. Travel and other organizations we are working to lobby beside. The feeling and working with all the coalitions and their conversations with their senators and our lobbyist conversations with senators is that Congress does know they need to act, and it is coming. It is probably not coming to the end of July, but we are actively pursuing and pushing it. It will probably come in the form of PPP first. We are pushing also, we know a lot of people are going to be unemployed still, so we are pushing for pandemic unemployment assistance to be extended, but that is a harder sell. For freelancers and the small business owners, it is going to probably be through a PPP loan, the next level of relief as it stands right now. We'll see. We're fighting hard. As Nancy said, fill out the survey. We're going to probably, as the votes start approaching, is the time to really push on a national letter writing campaign and the next action in tweet storming politicians. So we are preparing with our lobbyists when the time comes and the bills are really being decided. We are going to be reaching out to all of you to try to move forward and act. But I'm excited. We're excited to kind of have this town hall tonight to let you really know what's been going on behind the scenes here for the last month or so, which we've been very busy trying to organize and orchestrate all this going on. And we're hopefully it's going to give all of you out there a lot of hope that there are people coast to coast, as we have people from New York all the way to Oregon, and every time zone represented in this call. We do not stop working on this 7 days a week, really pushing for the industry. So we really appreciate it. As Nancy said, it's an honor. It's an honor to serve alongside everyone here on this board and fight together. And it is an honor to have everyone in the Live Events Coalition National Group, your support and continued support as we continue to push forward toward this effort of being a very strong, unified voice for the live events industry in the broadest sense that's never been seen before in the country, as far as all of us coming together to really explain why live events is that invisible fabric that is holding our culture together, holding our economy together, and holding our families together through gathering and celebrating together and doing business. So that's all I have to close. And I think unless anyone else has something to chime in, I appreciate everyone hanging out with us for an extra 30 minutes as well.
We do appreciate everybody. We're a behind the curtain industry. It's our time to stand out in front and don't be shy. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jaclyn. Thank you, Isaac. And Alex behind the scenes, because Alex is still behind the curtain. But thank you to everybody. Again, we are here for all of us and we're here for you. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Isaac and Nancy.
Thank you,
Bye,
Nancy.
everyone.
Thank you, Isaac.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Facebook world. Good
Yes,
night, YouTube.
touch Facebook.
Bye, Facebook.
Bye-bye.